You're listening to the Digital Data Café podcast, where we talk about everything data-driven in your world. Join us each week to hear from the world's top business and industry leaders on why using data in a digital world matters. Here's your host, Albert Thompson.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for joining another quality episode of Digital Data Café. Really excited here. I'm with Brent Albrecht. He is the Vice President of Business Development with Friendemic. Brent, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Awesome. Hey, Albert, I appreciate you having me on.
No, super excited. And, Brent, I know we just got back from NADA and you guys were out there. So it was pretty exciting to see you out there. But, tell us a little bit about NADA. How was it for you?
It was an awesome show. I think if anything, I would have taken another day. I mean, there's so many people that I haven't seen for, maybe 2 or 3 years in person. There just wasn't enough time in the day to catch up with everybody and to sit down and have conversations. So I had a long list of people I wanted to talk to, and you just couldn't get to them all. But no, it was a great show.
No, it was great. And I was really glad to catch up with you and the Friendemic team. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I think just another day would have been nice. And the two halls, right? They were, kind of far from each other. So it was hard to get through both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for those that are listening, Brent, what would you say was your takeaway from the show? I'm sure, others have their opinions, but what do you think that you heard from dealers? What did you hear from vendors? What would you say you took away from the show this year?
I think, there's a, more emphasis on doing business digitally, right? And we've already, chatted about that in a few different ways that COVID really pushed consumers forward much faster in terms of, shopping online, shopping virtually, and doing more and more of the car buying process online. And I think dealers are still, like wrestling, like what's the best solution? Because the reality is some dealers, they want people to come in the dealership. Like they make money on your trade-in and they make money on F&I. Right. And if you bought everything front to back on the website, they miss out on some of those other sales opportunities. And so how do they move people into this digital commerce, solution that they want, but still, make the money and make sales like they used to do, and it's a challenge.
It's interesting that you brought up the COVID, and I definitely want to touch on that. But for those that are listening, Brent, why don't you give everybody a little bit of background on yourself and what's your story? How'd you end up as the VP of Business Development at Friendemic, and what is Friendemic?
So I've been with Friendemic. It'll be 8 years this summer. Wow. So I actually worked for another social media, reputation social media company for about 4 years. So in that whole reputation social media space for automotive, it's been almost 12 years.
Wow.
So we've been doing that a long time. Love it. Love working in the automotive space. As you know too, right? A lot of people work in auto for a long time. That's right. At various, either vendors or OEMs. But I think that's really cool because now that you develop relationships with people for a long time,
right.
There's people I've worked with, like 10 years in this industry. And I think that's really awesome. Before that, I did digital marketing. I don't want to show my age too much, but I was, one of the first digital marketing things. I worked for a company where we were building websites for people. I mean, that's, mid 90s. And then all of a sudden this thing came up of, you're building websites for people. And, I remember selling it to dealers at the time and they're like, we don't need a website. Right. And they all have them now. And then e-commerce came out and then the people are like, we don't need to do e-commerce. Right. We just want a brochure website. And then they all got into e-commerce. Right. And you can see how it continues to evolve. So digital marketing has been something I've been doing for almost 30 years, but really social media is, and reputations were the focus in the last decade.
It's interesting that you brought that up because I've seen that evolution too. I got in at a very young age. I've been in myself 25 years. So I've seen that whole, evolution from don't need a website. Now it's like, oh no, I remember the early 2000s. It was like the e-commerce is going to take it over. They'll be buying cars right from the website. And, and now 20 some years later, we're actually starting to finally get to digital retailing. But let's talk about Friendemic. And, you mentioned social, you mentioned, reputation and that kind of being the forte. Is that the ecosystem that Friendemic really excels in, or give us a little background on how you guys are doing at Friendemic there?
Yeah. So like I said, I've been at Friendemic 8 years. They've been around, 11 going on 12 years. Mm-hmm. So I've been with them for a long time, but not since the beginning. They've always been focused on the niche of what you call reputation and social media. Mm-hmm. Now what we do in reputation social media has evolved. In the very early days, a lot of it was doing marketing on Facebook for dealers of how do you build more likes. Do you remember that? And it was all like everybody wanted we just want more likes. And it was the more likes you got, the more people that saw your posts. Mm-hmm. Because posting was free and there was no boosting back then, and that was the strategy. Mm-hmm. And then it really changed from there. And Facebook ads came around. But Friendemic's always been a technology provider at heart. Mm-hmm. And we've had, our own reputation software from day one. It's evolved a lot, in and around that. But like I said, you could see the evolution from social posting to we got into Facebook ads a lot for a while. Really moved away to that because we want to focus on being the software provider, right? It's really hard to follow a SaaS model and be great at software. And you're like, and let's do like agency and be great at Facebook ads and those things. And you had to almost pick a direction at that point a few years ago. And software is where we started, and that's where we wanted to stay. So we really moved away from ads. We agency partners, and we don't want to interfere with that. So now it works out nice, right? I'm not competing with my agency partners for ads, and we'll do the software side.
Yeah, that's great. And it's interesting that you said that, right? Because it's like, if you want to really build a SaaS platform, you almost have to pick a lane, right? You can't go into the ads agency model and then also stand up a SaaS platform and compete with your agencies that you want to adopt your platform. And then,
exactly.
I've been following you guys for quite some time and really exciting. I've watched you guys develop the Catalyst platform. But for those that are listening, why don't you tell us what is Catalyst and how does it really impact my dealership and what can it do for us?
Oh yeah. So the Catalyst suite is that's our proprietary software. And like I said, like early days, our software was limited to, you could do review invites, manage reviews, and social posting. And that was really about it. Mm-hmm. And we've continued to expand the products and features in there, and dealers can pick and choose the ones they want. But part of it is having a lot of conversation with dealers, and we could see where this was headed. They don't want to deal with tons of different vendors for every tiny little product.
Right.
So we've broken them out. Catalyst Reputation lets you send out review invites and manage all your reviews. And there are other vendors out there that have a reputation solution, but that's all it does is reputation. Right. And then we have the Catalyst Video, and it allows you to share one-on-one high-def videos easily. So like salespeople can do walk-around videos, intro videos, I can send service videos. There are vendors out there that have a video product, and that's all it does.
Right.
And then we have, Catalyst Photo lets you collect photo and content for social media posting. And there's apps out there for that. But the reality is, does a dealer really want like 3 different mobile apps on 3 different platforms, through 3 different vendors? And that's one of the things that really felt that was unique with Friendemic is we built a suite that has all these products, you know what I mean? And now you can log in a single place and do them all. And then really excited this year, launching Catalyst Publisher, which that social content you can capture through our platform. Now you can publish, schedule it out, and do mass posts, and you can do it across 8 different networks. So not just Facebook only, but Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, and a couple more probably I'm even forgetting. And then we're having a chat software that's going to launch by Q3. Wow. So again, with this idea of, here now you have a single platform. You can pick and choose the pieces you want, but it's a single login and you can handle it, you can manage everything that way.
Yeah, Brent, it's fantastic, and I got to tell you, from my time that I spent, on the OEM side, right, working with Infinity, this was a big problem. I mean, this was a major problem, and it was, one of the things that I liked the most about your Friendemic Catalyst software is that, if you think about it from a workflow standpoint, I'm a dealership, right, and I've got a consumer, I've got a lead that comes in, it's hitting my CRM. A lot of the OEMs require an FQR, first quality response, and then it's like, well, how can I, really integrate a video response to that? Because we know we're starting to move in, hey, customized, personalized videos, 10 to 15-second video. Hey, Brent, this is, Albert over here at your dealership. This is your Ford, F-150, and you walk around the car. How do you do that? Incorporate that in an easy, streamlined way to send that to the consumer. And then, how do you manage your photos from that? How do you, seek and get reviews and reputation from that? All in one platform. And that's what's really unique about your software. And I think it really falls in line with helping stores to streamline their process.
Yep. And we've really built it around. We don't want to get into a variety of products that don't make sense, right? We want them all to be related. And our mission is really around helping dealers communicate digitally with their prospects and customers. Okay. And if you think about it, then, just like you said, right? So prospects that want to see videos, walk around videos of cars. Okay. That's digital communication. And then, those happy customer photos of people after the sale for social media posting. That's part of your digital communication, as well as asking them to write reviews and responding to the reviews. And then obviously you see chat fills in nicely, in that set of digital communications with your customers.
I love that. I think it's the North Star. It sounds like, for Friendemic, if it's digital and it's communicating with your customers, that's your North Star. What's very exciting is this publisher piece that's coming out, right? Because I think one of the biggest challenges, and a lot of dealers that I know personally, I've spoken with, it's, hey, I want to also do organic posts on my social. It doesn't necessarily want to be paid all the time. Hey, I want to promote organically. I want to communicate, what's happening in my community. I want to communicate what's happening on the lot. But I want to make sure that I'm not spending all this time doing Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and that's been a need for so long. It's exciting to hear that this is coming down the pike. Can you tell us a little bit more about, what you think that might do for the dealer world?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And I would say too, we said, like, we don't want to be an agency. We want to be a technology provider. We do offer some services, but really the services we offer are like a very logical add-on to one of the software pieces for the dealers that don't want to do it themselves. But we built a software suite, so you could use our software. If you have a marketing person at the dealership and you're like, I want to handle this in-house, you absolutely can, right? You get alerts when the reviews come in. From our platform, you can see them, respond to them. You can all the content that comes in. You could capture it now. You could post it with Publisher, and you could do it yourself. And then some dealers don't have time to do that, and so they outsource it to us. Well, that's where a lot of this came from. We used a couple other software publishing tools over the years. I think there's almost 800 dealers now that we publish social content for.
Wow.
So we've got a big team using software, and you quickly learn what works and doesn't. So I don't need to necessarily call them out, but it's, names you've heard of. We had them and they all worked, but none of them are designed for automotive specific, right? Mm-hmm. They're, and there's the same with that with a lot of vendors. They're providing solutions for all businesses and all verticals. And sometimes that all doesn't work for what an auto dealer needs. And the same with us. We couldn't find a good publishing tool that worked for our auto dealer specific clients. And then finally, we were like, you know what, you build one. And that's what you did on the reputation side at one point, and even our review response platform. So we have a separate enterprise response console that we offer to groups. It's the tool that our team used for years. And then at some point, we're like, enough clients are asking for, the tool, not the service. We made it available for them. That's really what happened for Publisher. Our team's been using our Publisher tool for a year. But then you have to go and you have to kind of change some of the structure to make it so I could let dealers use it direct, manage their individual user accounts. And that's really the shift. So for our team, it doesn't seem like a new product, but offering it direct to dealers is. And so that's why we think it's really cool. But you can go create a single post and I could, in theory, just post that same post across 8 networks. But let's say, no, wait, I have my post built, but in Twitter, I want to put some hashtags on. Oh, Google Plus, wow, Google, that's old. Google Business Profile page, I want to add a call to action link. You know what I mean? And Facebook, I want to tweak this on Instagram. You can tweak the post on each network and then still go boom, and you send it out to 8 different networks. So, it's really around saving time across all the networks. Or if you were part of a group and you're like, hey, for my 15 Toyota stores, I want to push this Toyota incentive, you could do that. And so again, for us managing a lot of dealers, that's some of the features that we wanted and needed for what we do for our clients.
It's interesting that you had a natural progression from being able to help, big groups and dealers to being able to now create a tool that syndicates and now they can actually use it. Yep. And with that said, I think it's a good opportunity for us to segue on, what is the value for dealers in terms of reputation, but even more so, I know you guys are also doubling down on GBP. It's so hard for me to remember. I'm so used to Google My Business, but GBP, right? Yes. So, you talked about the COVID landscape. You talked about the audience and the way that we're moving into a digital framework now from the pandemic. And so we're hearing more about GBP, why it's so important. We're hearing more about, reputation. Well, walk us through that and why it's important to double down in that space.
Yeah, I mean, boy, and you're right. Google My Business comes easier for me to say than Google Business Profile. So right. I'll say it wrong probably a few more times on the phone. Again, COVID was part of that switch of more consumers shopping digitally. Google's almost always ahead of the game, and they're trying to make the online shopping process easier. And part of that is instead of, sending, somebody going to a Google Business Profile page and then from there going to your website and searching around to find information, that's not super user friendly. And especially more and more people are on mobile now. You got to make it easy for them. People have short attention spans. So, there's a lot of talk about how your Google Business Profile page has become your new home page, because that's where the shopping journey starts now when I'm buying a car. Mm-hmm. And if that said, there's a lot of information that you could give to a consumer so that they don't have to go to your website. Right. And obviously, I can click the call, I can see the store hours. But, more importantly, I can, click to make an appointment, at the dealership. And now with Google Cars for Sale, I can see some of the inventory on there. I can see the products they have. So, Google's done that. They've made these changes so that the consumer can get so much more of their buying information there. And in some cases, they get enough of what they need to make a decision. And I think where you really see that, I use the example all the time of restaurants. If you think about it, like, if you go to Google Business Profile pages for a restaurant, right? You and I want to go out somewhere. We're looking for a Chinese food. It's easy to search Chinese restaurants. I can go see pictures of the food, menu. I can, and because they're all integrated with a reservation system, right? I can make a reservation at the restaurant. Like, and I can read reviews. Why do I need to go to the restaurant's website at all? Yeah. But it's a seamless experience. And that's where you think auto's going, right? That same kind of direction.
Yeah, it's crazy. We just did a podcast with Chris Lytle, the CEO of DBA Platform, and he used to actually be one of the heads over there at Google, and it's funny because he was talking about near me searches, right? And since the pandemic, one of the stats that a lot of people don't know is 41% of all searches now are containing near me. And actually, another Google Consumer Insights report that I just read, Brent talks about how in the last couple of years, near me has increased by more than 200%. But here's what's really interesting. Over half of all Google Business Profile interactions actually led to exactly what you're talking about, a click to the site, a call. And then 97% of those users did all of their research on the GBP. So it's clearly how consumers are consuming business information today.
Oh, it absolutely is. And just to throw another stat at you. So we had one of our Sarah Honda store down in Illinois. We're talking to them and they said, looking at their Google stats, 16% of the web traffic was coming from their Google Business Profile page, right? And so you're like, all right, well, that doesn't wow me maybe in that sense. But then they're like, on the website, 27% of the form fills are from the Google My Business page, well, Google Business Profile, and 69% of the phone calls. So you can see, like, you know, I remember like old, long time ago days, there were guys that were selling yellow pages, and they would be like, oh, we have all this research that, you know, X number of people get your number from the yellow pages. And they use that as justification on why you need to advertise in the yellow pages. And it wasn't though that the yellow pages were the great place to advertise, but it was like the last place you looked before you picked up the phone. Yeah. Google Business Profile pages, like that's where you go. I'm on Google, I'm doing my searches, I look at reviews, I click the call. So, you know, 69% of your phone calls from Google Business Profile, it's going to be a big deal. And again, you got to take advantage of that as a dealer.
100%. I mean, it's incredible how important the Google Business Profile is. And if you really think about it, right, if you know, from a consultant hat, right? So if I put my consultant hat on and I'm talking with a general manager or a dealer principal, you know, let's walk through that consumer journey, right? Let's say I'm in market and I want to sell my car or I want to buy a car. What's the first thing I do, right? I'm going to go to a Google search. I'm going to do a Bing search, and Bing's got their own version of GBP. But here's the thing is, right, I'm going to type in whatever I'm looking for, whatever dealership I'm looking for, whatever car I'm looking for. And what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to interact with that entry point into your website, which is the GBP. And if I need to just pick up the phone and make a call, I'm going to do it right from the Google Business Profile. If I need to make an appointment, I might do it right from that service-based Google Business Profile. Anything.
Oh, absolutely. And And I think, you know, the good news is dealers do pretty well with their main Google listing, and you know, and as a place to sell cars. But you know, the big change that we've seen over the last was it a year and a half now, or maybe longer? Google says you should separate out service and parts pages, right, and have those as separate departments. And I still think that the dealers are missing this opportunity. They haven't looked. If you go, you know, so I live out kind of in Napa Valley area, you know, if you were to search, let's say, you know, I'm in Napa and I'm doing search for a Toyota dealer, I would assume if there's Napa Valley Toyota, that it's going to come up first. Right. And for most of these dealers, if they search for, you know, Honda dealer in my town, and they're the Honda store, they'll come up first. And you're like, see, everything's right in the world, exactly what I expect. But now I'm like, well, let's change that search a little bit. Make it Honda auto repair instead of Honda dealer. And now all of a sudden, sometimes you're not number one anymore. And you're like, wait, you are in this city. You are absolutely the closest Honda dealer. But for Honda auto repair, you don't come up first. Sometimes it's because other stores have a service page and you don't. That gives them an advantage. Sometimes repair places have killed it. You know, if you think about it, the Midas, Jiffy Lube, Pep Boys of the world, they all have Google Business Profile pages that talk nothing about anything but service, right? They're like, we're all service, all auto repair. There's no selling cars or anything. And they beat the franchise dealers for a lot of years.
Yes.
And now Google has given franchise dealers, they're like, here's how you get in that fight, right? Here, if you want to compete with these guys and get local auto repair business, here's how you do it. And still, I think there's dealers that are skeptical that they do this. But, you know, start doing, you know, brake service near me, oil change near me, you know, Toyota repairs near me in your market, and see where you come up.
Right.
And you don't do near as well as you do on the car sale side, because that's where you put all your efforts for all these years.
You know, it's so, it's funny. And I actually was a part of this, right? I was a part of this initiative from the OEM side. You know, the OEMs in particular, you know, I was working with Infinity, right? And this is where, from a brand perspective, they started to initiate, you know, wanting dealers to have a parts page, a service page, and then a brand, you know, business page for sales. And, you know, some dealers adopted it, but then, you know, you've got to dispel this rumor, Brent, because half of the world thinks, you know, you should have one page, and then half of the world says you should have a parts and a service page. What's the answer? I know what my answer is, but I agree with you. I think dealers absolutely 100% are going to need the opportunity to capture that service and parts business separate from sales. And with as much traffic that comes in on these Google business pages, why wouldn't you want that additional exposure? Can you tell us any reason why they shouldn't have a service or parts page?
I mean, I just think the more time that goes on, the more evidence and stuff that we can see in terms of how many more searches you show up in and how much business that drives. But the reality is it's two different customers, right? Like, again, if I'm in need of an oil change for, you're like, well, I could be a new car customer too. I'm like, well, I could be, but I'm probably not searching for a new Jeep and an oil change at the exact same time, right? At a given time, I'm in the market for auto repair services or maintenance services, or I'm in the market to buy a vehicle. And I know there's some crossovers, right? They bring a car in for service and they get you to trade it in, right? But those are the exceptions. The reality is, if I need brakes on my car, I want to go to a page that tells me about your service department, and I can read reviews from other people who had repairs done there. And the fact that you bought a truck from them 2 weeks ago is not relevant, accurate information. And I don't know how you make sense to combine them all. The people I think that are more skeptical is because there are examples out there where there's service pages that haven't done much for dealers. And so then they use that as a reason like, oh, this isn't good. There's at least one OEM that went out and created parts and service pages for every single dealer in the country, right? They worked with Google. They all had them. No photos, there's no reviews. And so, of course, that doesn't look like credible business to Google. They don't show them in searches.
Right.
So then now all these dealers are like, I don't know, I have these service pages, like they don't do anything for me. And you're like, no, they absolutely do not. Right. You do have to optimize the page.
That's right.
And one of the big things we see, and this is why we're in the Google Business Profile Help Management business for dealers, is you got to have reviews, right? This is where it goes hand in hand. Google has said not just that you need reviews, but they're going to look at the number of reviews you get, your average rating, how recent the reviews are, whether you respond to them. You got to respond to all of them. You got to respond to them all quickly. I think there's like 5 or 6 different parameters around reviews that all go into sort of the weighting of your Google Business Profile page.
Right.
So, reputation used to be that thing that OEMs kept telling you have to do a good job in, or you're like, this is a measure of our customer service. And while those still may apply, the reality is reviews drive SEO. I think it is virtually impossible to have a successful SEO strategy on Google and completely ignore your reputation.
Yes.
Right. They go hand in hand. And I don't know how you're like, I don't care about reviews and I ignore those, but I'm going to pay an agency to manage all my SEO. You're tying the agency's hands. You got to have good reputation to win on Google.
Reviews drive SEO. I'm telling you, that's probably the best quote of the show, Brent. Reviews drive SEO. Listen, it's critical to the way consumers even search. And it's funny, right? Because if you think about it, if consumers aren't searching for something, then they're surfing or they're socializing. And if they're socializing, part of reputation is social, right? It's, hey, let me look at what other consumers have done or what other experiences they have had with their purchases and how have those purchases measured up in terms of a good consumer experience. And that's how I'm going to base my next decision as to how I buy. So these dealers have got to have, a review presence. They have to, make sure that as part of their closed, as part of the delivery, they're doing something to engage reviews. What are some of the best practices that you guys mentioned at Friendemic for getting retailers to actually engage on reviews? Is there a best practice you can recommend?
Yeah, I think, well, part of it is, there's a lot of dealers now that have a process where they ask customers to write a review. And, usually it's an email or a text goes out, hey, thanks for your business. Please write a review on one of the sites below. It's there's still some vendors where, or CRMs where the solution just pushes everybody to your main Google My Business page, Google Business Profile page. You need to find the right software provider where they can parse out that data. So if it's a sales customer and I click to Google, then you send me to your main page. If it's a service customer, then it sends me to your Google service page. Like, that's really easy and it's seamless for the customer. They don't know. You send them to the right Google page. And if you do that, all of a sudden you'll get reviews on both pages. So one, you got to get good reviews on both your pages. Make sure you respond to them quickly. If you don't have time, outsource it. And then I think the other thing is photos and content. Mm-hmm. And, I think people will do the social posting below, and it's not like Facebook where, the big difference I think I see between Google and Facebook in terms of posting, Facebook post really got to be, it was only seen by your fans. And then it was like, well, by a part of your fans. And then you could boost it with ad dollars, right, to get the post seen more. But still, engagement was relatively low. But that's because you're hitting sort of a broad audience on Facebook. On Google, the people who see your Google business profile page, it's because they've done relevant searches, right? I was searching for a Honda dealer. I came upon your Honda Google business profile page. So, I mean, I'm much more of a low funnel prospect than the average person is on Facebook. And so it's a more relevant audience. You get a lot more engagement and action off those posts, and it doesn't require boosting. So you don't need near the volume. I think, you did one sales post and one service post a week. You look really good.
That's right.
Like you don't need to kill it with volume. You need good, relevant posts there when people visit your page. And then the other thing is, I don't think people see this a lot. The little photos at the top of the Google business profile page, they get a lot of views. Consumers look at, and so the more photos you add, generally we see you get a lot more visibility on your Google business profile page. So, I would say you want, at least 20 reviews. You want at least 20 photos just to get sort of a bare minimum before Google will even sort of pay attention to you. Yep. And then get regular posting there. And then you'll start tracking those, and you can start, you'll see the searches rise, and then the corresponding, phone calls, direction requests, and web clicks.
It absolutely does. And it makes a big difference. I'm so glad you brought this up because, and nobody knows the exact algorithm that Google's going to, place in terms of, the weighted average. But I think, a good rule of thumb, to your point, one photo a week, one post a week. And obviously I think another area that we should mention that doesn't really get a lot of attention, but I think is super important is Q&As. If you can actually if you can do a good seated Q&A and strategically think about, maybe it's something as simple as, doing a question saying, hey, are you offering 1.99% this month for whatever OEM event? Those things could start to show in an SEO search eventually, and you could, make sure that you're starting to rise to the top on that. I think that's an area that also gets forgotten quite often.
Oh, I agree. Anytime you can control the narrative, right, or control the conversation, like you should take advantage and do that. And that's why, if you ask people to write reviews, you'll get a lot more good reviews. So you're controlling that narrative, and you will respond to them. You're controlling that conversation. If you seed questions, then post answers, like you said, no, that's a good one I left out, and I agree. It's easy to do, and it can have a lot of value.
Well, Brent, I think what's most exciting here is talking about this publisher that's coming out. I think Publisher will help solve a lot of these organic postings and helping to have dealers be able to do some of this legwork and agencies to help with it. So let me ask you this: those that are listening, who's your ideal customer? I mean, are we talking dealers direct? Are we talking agencies? Who should reach out to Friendemic if they want to solve their Google business problem? If they want to solve their social publisher problem? If they need video content, what should they do? So specifically, I tend to work with our agency business partners and like the larger dealer groups. But I mean, on a whole, any dealers out there, I think between all the different software pieces we have, we've got a solution for you that can work. So you can definitely contact us for that. But agencies as well. If you're like, hey, we're trying to do good SEO for these dealers, but a better reputation score on Google would help make SEO easier for you. Or even if you're doing a lot of, PPC ads on Google, at some point people go look at ads and reviews will show on the ads, or I check the reviews before the time I look at your ad, the time I'm going to go to the store. Reputation matters. So, we work well with agencies on kind of, white label reseller arrangements, as well as dealers. So happy for either. I'm easy to find. It's Brent at Friendemic.com. Anyone reach out, and I'm happy just to answer questions too. If somebody's like, I have more questions on my Google business profile page, or, here's the problems we're having with it and why it's not getting results, I'm happy to answer questions where I can. Brent, I really appreciate it. And you got to connect with Brent or Friendemic.com if you guys are interested out there. But I'll tell you, some of the most forward looking and forward innovative technology company out there. So thanks, Brent. I appreciate it. And appreciate you joining Digital Data Cafe.
Wow. Thanks, Albert. All right. Appreciate it. Good time talking.
Thank you.